it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We're focusing in a little bit more in depth on the experience of gaslighting in narcissistic relationships, particularly that of a covert narcissist relationship. A covert narcissist is like an introverted, selfish individual, someone who has a heightened sense of self-importance, someone who puts their needs constantly above and beyond anybody else's, and tends to use the tactic of gaslighting or invalidating, insubstantiating, or minimizing others' reality, their needs, their viewpoint, their perspective, their opinions. And when we talk about really the depersonalizing effects of gaslighting, is when your feelings are basically gaslighted or your reality is invalidated, staying, it's all in your head. That doesn't make sense. That's not true. That never happened. That doesn't matter. Just let that go. It's not important. These are the sort of statements which create a gaslighting effect that makes you doubt your own feelings, doubt your own validity, doubt your own needs. And because the covert narcissist doesn't have that same origination of understanding needs or human needs or the attentiveness, they need to give you eye contact, to give you a hello, to give you, how are you doing? The rousing up, the play of humor, the taking of seriously of certain things, working things through from beginning to ending. They don't have this sort of, you don't have this exchange where it feels solid in reality. You have this feeling of perhaps being gaslighted or invalidated or making you feel basically like you're wrong, you're crazy for feeling this way, for reacting this way. Your needs are gaslighted, your needs are distorted, your needs are not validated. And the covert narcissist, because they are really sort of a little bit reserved, a little bit sort of receding, retiring, not real expressive by virtue of their personality or their nature. You don't really know where they stand oftentimes. You don't know where you stand with them. So you oftentimes have to work like double time just to get, kind of some emotion out of them or some emotional validation out of them. So you might find yourself having to be the leader all the time, working so hard to find out what it is that they need, or you might have to work very hard to prevent the silent treatment. You might have to go out of your way to be caregiving to them. You want to constantly, compliment them or anticipate their needs, or, constantly have to drop everything that you're doing or really kind of focus on your life in order to attend to their needs, their emotional needs. In the covert narcissist relationship, their needs, their unspoken needs, become basically like a treasure map. You have to go and you have to find out what it is this person needs, and you have to work very hard. So you become very attuned and adept to taking care of this covert narcissist's needs with denial or oftentimes gaslighting of your own, where you then repress or push down your own needs, your own voice, and you're basically feeling like a little bit of an altered reality or distorted reality, or really not fully present when you're with this individual, because you always constantly have to act with preservation of their happiness first. So everything has to be about their happiness, satisfying of their ego needs, their covert narcissist ego needs, presenting things in such a manner which becomes very more of an adaptation. But you oftentimes don't feel like you can just be yourself. You feel like that there's going to be this quiet disapproval, or if you don't keep working so hard, the relationship is not going to really be alive. You have to work, 75%, 80%, where they're working the 20% in the relationship, because you're trying to meet up the vacuous divide between the two of you. So it can take a lot of energy to be in a relationship with a covert narcissist. And so, this is, gaslighting. When you're invalidating your own reality, it's just like you feel then ashamed, you feel guilty, you feel fearful that you're asking too much, or you're wanting too much, or is this normal? So you tend to doubt your own needs. And if you're too much stuck in that analysis within your head, and you're constantly having to live to prevent the silent treatment or prevent their quiet sort of retreating, and then kind of ask them, constantly like trying to pull them out of the dark, pull them out of the garage, pull them out of the basement psychologically, like, and then, where did you go to? Where did you go off to? Where did you escape to? Like, you get so used to that you then, a lot of people just kind of give up, and then they sweep it under the rug, and they're like, well, he always goes and does that, and like he's never there. And so you then kind of, there you go, filling up the 80% of the relationship with guesswork, trying to guess at what they are going to need, guess at what they're looking at from you, working so that you don't disappoint them as really kind of the goal and focus of your life. And it's very important to realize that you have to be empowered in yourself and live by example in your own life as an example, versus living just to not disappoint another, because that target is like a moving target and they can move those standards. I mean, you might need to be this, expectations are here, then the expectations are here, then it's here, then it's there. I mean, it's like a winning, a losing battle, that the covert narcissist is always going to win, because they're going to be in their own little cloistered away, secluded, little bubble of superiority. And so to be superior, one has to be inferior, one has to be underneath. There's never going to be an equal ground, an eye to eye, a heart to heart. And all you can do is be yourself, be the best person that you can be, in being true to yourself and coming from a true, genuine, authentic place 100%. And if you have to apologize to them because you have to declare some boundaries, if you've over obligated to them, or you found so much of your life has been over obligated to them, you need to pull back the reins and say, okay, enough with over obligating. I'm limiting the amount of the emotional, my emotional bank account that I'm giving to this individual, because it's depleting me. It's depleting my reservoirs. It's bankrupting me emotionally, spiritually. And I feel I can't even live my own life without being snagged and ensnared in their narcissistic needs. And furthermore, I'm trying to live to prevent these, random insults, or these random disappointment, or random guilt, or, I'm constantly falling short. But that's just in the meter, a guidepost of this one individual, which has nothing to do with reality and like really measuring, your worth as a human being. And so you tend to be mirrored erroneously by this individual. It's like a circus mirror. You go there and it provides you a distorted image of yourself. So when you're around them, you kind of feel like there's this distortion or gaslighted reality, which flips around your needs. Like, you're so weak, and it's often interpreted, by the individual. If you can't express yourself, it's often interpreted by the human person as like being weak, being less than, for having these needs to be validated or spoken to, or have eye contact, or a pat on the back, or a meal, without being yelled at. It's just, and oftentimes the covert narcissist is very unconfrontational. They don't like to test. They just like to have their superiority. It's a very assumed superiority that they are going to protect in their status, in their family dynamic, or in their workplace. And you have to always defer to them as the above. And yes, there is, respect your parents, but it's very important to take that as value, and not take it to the point where it means that you suffer mercilessly at the hands of a covert narcissist who's neglected you, providing you love, guidance, attention, that sort of connection. Honor thy parents, honor thy spouse, I think, oftentimes is engraved in people. And, they tend to take on too much hurt for too long, and they stay in relationships for longer than they should have, because like they're living by that mantra, they're living by that principle, they're living by that commandment. When you have to be able to evaluate things yourself. And you then, when you evaluate the things yourself, you're able to back yourself up. You're growing in self-trust. You're growing in self-belief. You're growing in your faith. You're connecting to your own, higher power, which is attending to a truth. So it's very important, I think truth is really something to acknowledge, and, oftentimes the heart knows the truth. And so if you can be open and honest with yourself and have, that heart-to-heart connection and that communication with your heart and being able to know your own heart, forgive yourself for any wrongs that you did as trying to exist positively in this relationship. So being the human that you are, every human makes mistakes. Every person grows and learns, and oftentimes this covert narcissist, they want to have this idealized image of themselves, and you oftentimes have to live to keep that intact for them. And so, realize that it's okay to have a real perspective on a covert narcissist and not an over-idealized image of them, because the narcissist will oftentimes ingratiate themselves for that, that very positive, perfect, idealized image of themselves. They don't see where they have flawed themselves or others. They just, by virtue of a character disorder, they don't have an admittance of any shortcomings or fault, or if they've hurt you. It's just the way that it is. They're going to invalidate your reality. They're not going to work it through with you. There's not going to be any closure. There's not going to be I'm sorry, that was out of control, or that was wrong, or we feel so bad about that. There's never kind of a professing of wrongs. Because that would make them look human. And oftentimes the narcissist, wants to appear superhuman. They want to be this figure. They want to be this individual, whatever it is, this perfect doctor, perfect rock star, perfect this. They want to have this air of invincibility about them. And oftentimes that's not serving you, it's not serving them. And of course, when we're around a covert narcissist perfectionist, they expect perfection out of everybody. And so, if there's anything about you that is quote unquote imperfect, the hair's out of place, and emotions out of place, you chew your food the wrong way, you can't put the silverware in the drawer the right way, you don't know how to get a spoonful of sugar and lift up it the right way. They have this very self-superior sense about themselves, which then projects criticism onto others and judgment. And that takes a lot of work, I would think, to constantly live in that kind of judgment of others. But for some reason, it's silvering to the narcissist. For a lot of other people, it's not serving to be so judgmental. It doesn't help to be so self-critical, because that then becomes internalized, this self-criticism, and it just tends to become a way of life and identity, as we're discussing in the other videos. This self-criticism becomes a mood, and then mood prolonged becomes a personality and an identity. So, then people then have these very judgmental and critical personalities of others, and then, either then the codependents then internalize that harsh criticism and have this, critical voice about themselves all the time, and always feel less than, perfect, etc. And they have a lot of energy just trying to make this perfect life. If they could just live their life and let go of a lot of that judgment and that harsh burden that was inflicted on them from whomever, they would be a lot happier, and their life would go with the flow, and they would be, they'd realize that they're perfect, just being who they are. They don't have to try to strive for these unrealistic perfectionist expectations, which are, it's just always unattainable with the covert narcissist. So if you felt this gaslighting, come back to normal, come back to your heart space. Realize you're beautiful, you're perfect just the way that they are. It's the narcissist projection and the gaslighting that one oftentimes interprets feeling this way, feeling so negative, self-critical, and so down. But release that, let that go. Realize that is just the erroneous messages of a covert narcissist who has a pathological need to be and feel superior to others and will emotionally manipulate them to obtain those ends. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.